I'd like to call the North Aurora Community of the Whole meeting for Monday, December 2nd, 2024 to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Gaffino.
Here.
Trustee Christensen.
Here.
Trustee Curtis. Here. Trustee Gately.
Here.
Trustee Lowry.
Here.
Trustee Nedved.
Here.
Trustee Salazar. Here.
All right, thank you. Audience comments? Anybody? Trustee comments? Item 1 under discussion. Steve?
Thank you. Item number 1 is the gas and wash proposal, and this has gone to the board as a concept review in the past. It's gone to the Plan Commission as well. It is back tonight for Committee of the Whole. This is the portion where you review the Plan Commission comments and ask any more questions you might have. And the goal of tonight would be to decide whether to move it forward for the village board to vote on or to bring it back with more questions. And with that, Nathan.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So the gas and wash is looking to go at the corner of Airport and 31 on the Asbury property. So this property has been vacant for several decades, so it predates me by a long time. The last thing that was there was the OTB. So if your history is up to date, you might remember that building. But it's been vacant for quite some time, and the parking lot there remains. The property is zoned B2, is owned by Asbury, and is for sale. Gas and Wash is proposing to buy the whole 4.7 acre property and improve it with a gas station that would have a convenience store and 2 quick service restaurants, a long tunnel car wash with vacuum cleaners. There would be 7 island gas pumps in front, and then a separate diesel island, 2 islands in the rear. There is space in the building for 2 quick service restaurants. There is a drive-through here to service one of those restaurants. The building itself is a little over 8,000 square feet, would include both of those restaurants, the convenience store, and video gaming. The village code for this project for a car wash and a gas station would require 19 parking spaces. The applicant is proposing 71, so they have plenty of parking. There's parking here, front of the convenience store, on the side, and then over by the car wash. They've also submitted a traffic study to both the village and IDOT. Obviously 31 is an IDOT road, so IDOT will be requiring improvements, left turn lanes, right turn lanes for their access points. The site has an existing access point in the middle, so they'd be adding this right in, right out all the way to the south, and they'd be improving the center access point to be a left in, only a right out, but a full in, so you can right in or left in. There's also an access point, the existing access point off of Airport Road. So trucks coming to go to the diesel islands would enter off 31 either there or off of Airport Road there, come around the back, fuel up, come out and head south. If they did need to go back north, there is room for them to make that U-turn there. That's why that kind of bulb is there. To have the truck turn maneuver to head back. But it is the traffic pulling through the diesel islands is one way this way, so it would generally come out and either circle back or go out to the right. No trucks allowed up in front, so car traffic and truck traffic are separate. There's the landscape plan. It's a very good landscape plan. It covers lots of screening. In terms of the Asbury building behind, the building closer to Airport Road is the one that would have windows facing the developments. That's more heavily landscaped. Building back here, no windows that face that side. It's a blank brick wall. This is where stairwells are. So no residents on the southern building face into. There's still landscaping there, but obviously not as much as up there. But there's no screening needs, no windows on those residents down there. Your packet has a list of code exceptions. This is being approved as a PUD because it is greater than 2 acres. Many of the code exceptions are for setbacks. Because of the road improvements. There will be an IDOT dedication. The existing parking lot is, the old parking lot that's out there is paved right up to the right-of-way line. So there is currently no setback on this property. With the IDOT taking, kind of pushing everything back. So they will have a setback. They do have landscaping along the front. But our code calls for a 50-foot landscape buffer along 31. So we generally end up varying that for any project along 31. So there's just not room on lots along 31 to have 50. That's really more designed, I think, for orchard where you have. So there are a list of code exceptions in here. There are some setbacks as well as some signage exceptions for the number of signs. So there's 2 restaurant users in the building, so each would have their own sign, and then gas and wash would have a sign. The staff proposed several general conditions, comply with lighting ordinances, make sure all the screening is in place in the rear, coordinate cross-access with Asbury, and manage on-site truck parking. So there is no truck parking lot like you would see at a truck stop. They have the diesel islands here. Trucks can fill up. They can pull through and come in and use the bathroom and get a candy bar. But there's no overnight parking. There's no designated parking spaces. So it's not a truck stop in that regard. Show you some of so there's the turning movement. If the truck did have to make a U-turn, there's the inside of the convenience store. The elevations are very nice and meet our design guidelines, brick and stone. There's the rendering of the building and some of the signage for the car wash gas station. We do have representatives from Gas and Wash here that can answer any of your questions. If you want to come up and add anything you'd like. Anything I missed?
We thank you for this opportunity. My name is Chris Kolashevsky. I'm from WT Group. We're site architects and building architects. Along with me is Brian Hertz from MG2A, who is the civil engineer and the surveyor. We send our regrets from both Mr. McHenry and for legal counsel Lyman Tiemann that were here at the Plan Commission meeting. Unfortunately, they were not able to make it this evening. What the staff has stated in terms of all the requirements, and that really is a function of 2 things. One, the geometry of the site, narrowness as you go further north, and then also just the function of the proposed element. So rather than go into each of the details, I can go into every specific variance on the setbacks and every signage variance, but I just want to point out a few things that if we average, like on the front, we have a 9-foot setback at the car wash, but however, you could stay at but we actually have 16 feet elsewhere. And so I switched it, I'm sorry, 16 feet at the car wash and 9 feet in front of the C-store. And that at the back of the property, we have one particular point. The west property line is very irregular. It actually has a half circle in it. And there's one specific point right there that we're actually, when we redid the curbs, we actually were able to make it 1 foot now. So instead of 6 inches, the request would be 1 foot just at that area. But if you can see to the left, over there, we are actually almost 58 feet, 1 inch shy of 58 feet of setback, all in that area. So if you do averaging across the whole property line, we far exceed your minimum setback. That's true for all 4 Compass Point property lines, except for the front where it's a 50 setback, which was mentioned, really doesn't fit the environment. We do want to say that we're not trying to put too much on the site. You have a regulation called an FAR ratio. It's called a floor area ratio. And that by your code is allowed to be 2. And what we are is actually 0.07. So we're 1/28th the density that's allowed by your code. So even though we're asking for variances on these setbacks, one is because of that 50-foot very large setback, and others are the property geometry. In regards to the signage, we're actually having 5 businesses on this site. The 2 food vendors, C-store, car wash, and then the fueling component, which is made up of 2 elements, the auto and the what we call the commercial fueling. Our ideal customer for that, just so you know, is the box trucks and the day runners that are on the site, that are on the street currently. And they are traveling by the site. We are not at all estimating anyone coming off of the highway and maneuvering and getting to our site. Those folks have already pre-arranged gas cards with either Pilot or TA, those type of elements, which actually handle 85% of the commercial fueling business. So this is for the local customer that's there already, the day trucks, the day runners, and the box trucks, and some landscape vehicles. And so with that, since we have the 5 businesses, we're asking for some exceptions to the sign code, but we want to make it clear that we are allowed 890 square feet of signage. We're asking for 5 variances, but our total signage is only 616.6. So as you can see, we're leaving quite a bit on the table. More than 300 square feet of signage is being left on the table. And why? Because we know we have 5 businesses. We want to show smaller signs, but more of them in the right areas along the appropriate parts of the building and on the canopy, so that we have the proper notification for our customers. A, to tell them what's there. B, also to give them the time to react. That's what's on the lower left-hand side. You see the signage of size of the product. That is based on the United States Sign Council, which determines what size letters should be based on what's called the visual reaction time. This is a complex road, and based on the United States Sign Council, that's the size of the signs there. So that's why we're asking. So that is a safety concern. I've talked way too much, and I apologize for that. We have Dan Bryan's here to answer any civil questions. If you want to go into more detail on any of the variances or exceptions, excuse me, I'm available.
What restaurants are you looking at here?
We have usually the drive-through will be a coffee and donut offering. Typically, we have Dunkin' Donuts or Do Right Donuts or Sonny's. It all depends on, the franchisees and coverage areas and stuff like that. And then the second one is more of a local flavor. We like to talk to your community development directors, see what type of needs might be in the area. We have a taco offering, which is very fantastic. We actually cut off a part of a food truck and put it right on the wall, so you get that flavor. And so it's really fun to be in there. But we also have other offerings that are more in terms of the area. If that taco offering wouldn't be really needed, then we have other options.
I have a question about the landscaping that would
Yes.
be along the line where the buildings from Ashbury Gardens do face into your site.
Mhm.
And when that landscaping is put in, what would the size of that landscaping be? Are they going to be 4-foot trees, or are they going to be more along the lines of 12 or 15-foot trees?
Probably not the 12 to 15, but definitely not the 4-foot. We'll be meeting your requirements in terms of the diameter and the density. And we always pick trees that have a fast grow rate. Different species sometimes take 2 or 3 years to start growing after a transplant. We take the types that grow right away. What we have, even though, just so everyone knows, we are adding 93 trees to this whole site. 69 are shade trees or deciduous trees, 9 evergreens, 15 ornamentals. In addition, we're adding 166 evergreen shrubs and numerous, almost 2,000 perennials and grasses. What we try to do from a landscaping perspective is we want color and movement throughout the year, all 4 seasons. So we have variety and we have a mixture of plant types so that it does create that interest and quite frankly complements the architecture as well.
I appreciate that. My concern here is that, and actually I drove by this the other day and I happened to be a passenger, so I was able to get a good look at it. Is that building is very close to the lot line, right? It's very close. And these are elderly people, right? It's a skilled nursing facility. With the lighting and I feel like the landscaping, they're going to be looking right into, right? There's 2 stories. Those people who are on the second floor are going to be looking right into the facility. It is a 24-hour, 24/7 facility, correct?
It is, yeah.
Okay. And I didn't hear anybody mention, but there's also going to be video gaming also in the site. Is that correct? I didn't hear anybody mention that, but.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, there is.
Okay, so that's my concern, I guess. I feel like it's very close to a facility that there's a lot of elderly people there. They're sick. While I appreciate the fact that you say there's not really going to be day traffic, it could be, right? There could be traffic all night and day. The gas pumps are open. So that's really my concern about that, and that the landscaping, while of course it's always, it's not going to be 15 foot when it's put in, sometimes landscaping really doesn't grow to block their view and sort of negate some of that sound for quite some years. So I would say that's a concern that I have. And I had voiced this at the previous meetings. I do have a concern about, in the village is typically, I understand why a business wants video gaming. I'm not so sure that I feel that it's needed in a gas station. I understand the business owner's reason for having it. But I do have some concerns about that as well.
I'm gonna add, excuse me, about the trees, go back to the landscape. So you said like, excuse me, 60 or so are deciduous. What you said, or 70, then 9 were conifers.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
I'd rather see more conifers in the back because, I mean, as trustee Salzar said, deciduous trees aren't really going to do anything. And, the first 8 feet is a trunk. I like to see some more evergreens along the back, blue spruces or whatever, but something along that line that would absorb the sound, the smell, some of the diesel and all that. But I think having 70 regular trees is fine, but that's really not anything you're going to screen anything with.
Okay, we will certainly look at that.
Trustee Salzar and Mayor Gaffino. In our subdivision ordinance, just so for talking points, the tree sizes that are required are shade trees, which will be your deciduous trees, have to be 2.5-inch caliper, which is similar to what we plant in the public works program. So when you see trees planted in the parkway, that's about the size minimum that are required. So they do come in fairly short, maybe 8 to 10 feet. As far as the conifers, evergreens have to be at least 6 feet tall and ornamentals have to be at least 6 feet tall.
I mean, parkway trees, it takes forever for them to grow 20 feet, you plant them in.
20 years.
2.5
Correct.
feet.
So in this case,
Yeah.
because this is a PUD, this would be the time that if you had questions about adding to the landscaping plan, this would be the.
Yeah,
time
that's
to do
what we're
it.
talking about. So
And
I'd like
the,
to see heavy in the back there, like Carolyn said, the seniors back there and all just the different people that live there, that this would be an annoyance to them.
So the windows you see when you drive by are this building here. So
Mhm.
that's part of the reason why they put the car wash on this side, so they would have that big area there to landscape. Again, this building down here, that side of the building is a brick wall.
Mhm.
So the views of the neighbors are going to be on that building. And that's the area they have most room.
And the semis pulling in and hitting the building with their headlights and all that.
Is there also a fence there or if there's just landscaping?
I believe Asbury has a fence, but I don't think it's a solid fence. I think it's just a
Okay.
chain. So that, that in the landscape plan, that's that area there, which already has kind of the double row. So they have tried to make that the heaviest landscape area. You can get into the details of the landscape plan.
Sure.
And make sure.
I mean, they could substitute some of the trees for pine trees or blue spruces.
It's giving me
or-
shades of the project on Mitchell.
Yeah.
right? Where the
Mhm. Yeah.
residents, they own their residences there and they have a choice of whether to live there or not. They can sell their property. People in Asbury Farms, Gardens, they're kind of there, and they don't really have control over what's going on. And so that's just my concern is that you have people who are, like I said, they're elderly, probably more sickly. And I feel like I don't want to have something there that's going to lower their quality of life, as opposed to not affect it. That's great. But that's just my concern about the noise, and the lighting. And if the landscaping is not such that it's going to block it, like you said, the parkway trees. I've lived in my house for 23 years, and yeah, now it would cover a second story. But they take many, many years for them to get to be that big. So those are just some of my concerns.
There is in the packet, a letter of support from Asbury for this project. Now that's from ownership, obviously.
correct.
They went in and asked every
I'm sure they didn't.
resident, but the ownership at least is in support of.
Yeah, I'm like I said before, I'm not sure that the ownership of Asbury is necessarily, they're in business and they're selling land, and I think that's their concern. Not that they're not concerned for their residents necessarily, but I'm not sure that, how much that
Eventually, the
factors
view of
into
the
it.
trees will be much better than the parking lot now.
What's that?
Eventually, the view of the trees will be a lot better than the view of the parking lot that's currently there.
That may be true. A lot of those residents won't see.
I don't think you're talking about the parking lot, you're talking about the noise and the fumes and everything else created by headlights.
Well, part of this though is where you see the car washes. There are no windows on that side of the building. It's a total masonry bearing building. So you have the masonry and the stone, and then you have the layer of landscaping. Then you have the drive. Then you have the double layer of landscaping. And we could add a sound fence along the edge. We just find it's easier to look at landscaping than a harsh fence. But if that's a requirement, we certainly would.
I would agree with you that mature landscaping is clearly much nicer than the fence. It's just that it will take some time to get there.
And,
So just,
and it's not, this is, I apologize for
no, that's
interrupting.
okay. I just said, just substitute some of the trees for spruces and things. I think you're good to go. I mean, yeah, it's 60, 70 trees, so
If you,
swap some out, make it a
if
little
you
more
look
dense.
at like one of the gas and wash sites, they are known for their landscaping and they do not
I
put the
would just like to
skimpy.
say, not to interrupt, but this is a parking lot that's been vacant for 20-something years. I'm excited to see something go in that looks like you're putting a lot of thought into the community. I do agree with what Carolyn's saying. We've had a lot of issues on the east side of the village with distribution centers and lighting issues and truck noise and the view and things like that. And, one of the things we need to make sure is that we're not going to have the same problem we've had on the east side again. So we need to do whatever it takes, whatever staff can do to take a look at some of the issues we had on the east side, assume that we're probably going to have the same issues going on with Asbury. And I get it. They're in support of the development and they're in this to keep their residents happy and to keep their rooms full. So I don't think they would support this if they thought it would be detrimental to their occupancy rate. So I don't have that much of a concern with them. But just knowing the history, how every time we get any development that has to deal with trucks, we have an issue with the residents. So this is an opportunity where we can nip this in the bud. So anything you can do, just knowing the history of our village with trucks and residents having issues with trucks, when they're running the engines or whatever it
Idling, yeah,
is.
it's
or the
idling.
Yeah,
fumes,
so
whatever it is.
definitely, no parking along this access road. So you don't want trucks, sitting there idling all night, so that, maybe talk a little bit about your site control in terms of parking and no overnight
Right.
parking and things like that.
Yeah, there's a specific, you'll see that behind the car wash down that road, that's purposely narrowed to 24 feet. We didn't make it 30 feet so that someone could be tempted. So we've narrowed that lane. And then really the only point forward after fueling, typically for a commercial fueling, it takes about 20 minutes roughly to fuel versus 5 minutes for an auto. And so what happens is after 20 minutes, they pull forward, they go in, they know the next one behind them is going to be about 20 minutes. So they're going in and out real quick. And so really our purpose is to separate the trucks from the autos in the front, both from a safety standpoint, perceived and real, and also a convenience standpoint for the customers who are driving autos that do not have to intermix with the trucks on a on every single turn that they make. And so we very purposely look at that and control that. And again, this is for the day runners, the box style trucks that are going to fuel up and go in for a quick lunch, et cetera, and then come back. So it's different than like a truck depot where you've got trucks coming in and out all day. We submitted a couple things in our package, and one was comparing a site at Homer Glen and comparing a site that the Homer Glen one was about 0.19. It was right on the interstate. And then there is and I apologize, I'm just getting to that. And long story short is we roughly had about 40 trucks on average on Harlem, and then in Homer Glen about 48. And our distance is in between the distance from the interstate to what these were. And so, and anything happening after 9 o'clock, there was one truck. So after 9, we basically don't have business. And the reason we want to be open 24/7 is not so much that we sell a lot of auto gas at 2 a.m. Really, it's the old commercial. I'm sure some of you who might have the same color preference of hair might remember the time to get up and make the donuts thing. And that is true. They're in there like 3 a.m. to start for the next day. This one is a little bit bigger, so they're going to be making some of the donuts on the site. Some of them will be brought from commissary, but some will be made on site. And so really we have employees coming in at very early hours, and that's really the safety we find from our customers, also from our employee standpoint, that an open store is a safer store than a closed. And the dispensers are $45,000 a pop. And it's notorious for stations that are closed overnight, that people raid those and put in these readers that scam people's Visa cards and stuff like that. So that's really the reason why we want to be 24/7.
I don't know. I go to the store you have up in Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I think it's great. Where I'm at.
Yeah. I just echo everybody else's comments. So just tidy up the landscaping to me. Something that'll last throughout the winter, I think is very important there. And then, as far as a fence, I mean, it's like the perfect scenario for me would be put a fence up. This isn't going to happen, but put a fence up until the trees are grown and then take the fence down type thing, But of course, that's not going to happen. So I would just say beef up the conifer type things there in between the car wash. But otherwise, and like Mark, the one up on Jericho is really nice. For a gas station, it's very nice. So I think this is a good fit for the spot.
Yeah, I agree with everything and would also just say that I really don't like the idea of video gaming, and I think that aspect should be taken out.
I'd like to say something. I do have one concern. Let me start out by saying I'm completely for the idea. I like the concept. I think you put a lot of thought into the design, but my concern is northbound trucks making a left into that opening there, not on Airport Road, but that opening, that full ingress, outgress, exit, entrance, exit thing. I have a concern about safety and congestion, because there's a lot of cars that come north off of 88 at certain times of the day. And although cars may not be a big issue turning left there, but I'm thinking of a truck sitting there waiting for opposing traffic because they're much slower and less agile than a car, creating a traffic problem. Can you respond to that in some way? Did you look into that issue?
Yeah, we know that there's two things, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, that will make a retail fueling site successful. It's got to be safe and it's got to be convenient. if you can't get into the site, guess what? You're going down the street to the next facility. It's easier to get into. So what we're developing here, and Brian could expound if we need to, but we're actually creating a left turn lane into that left spot there.
Oh,
There's
okay.
enough right of way on the roadway for us to do that. And we're working with IDOT in terms of they have requirements for the stacking, the taper, all based on the existing traffic count, which is 17,000 cars a day. So that stacking and the taper will all be in line with that to ensure that proper stacking is there, and so that is not holding any through traffic
Will
going
that
north.
left turn lane then extend on down to Airport Road? Is that how that will work?
Brian, I don't think it does. It does? Okay.
So so your left turn lane, the new one would be here, come in, and then the one for airport would start right past the intersection.
So we were recently notified that all of 31 there is going to get repaved. Is that correct? I'm assuming and hoping this all gets worked out together, so it's not going to get
So
torn up right after it gets
Uh,
repaved.
31 wasn't on IDOT's 5-year
Right.
plan. It wasn't, we were kind of surprised because it wasn't, and obviously you all know the condition of it, so we kept looking every year, like, is that going to be repaved? Are they going to do anything? And nothing. All of a sudden, they said, oh yeah, we're going to do it next year. My guess is you guys applied and are going to be doing work, and they looked at the road and went, oh, that, I don't know that for a fact, but that would be my guess.
Well, again, I would hope that it's
We want
Done in
it's
conjunction.
done in conjunction so that
Yes.
it's not
You'd
torn up a
want
brand
them
new
to Put in
road.
their turn lanes first and then.
So, yeah.
Well, and then same
Not to
thing
mention
isn't,
that we also have the intersection improvements at Airport and
Yes.
31 that we've been working with IDOT for years on. So
Right.
they know about this petition and our petition while this, so simultaneously they've seen all of it.
and then these plans that we see on the screen right now take into account that intersection upgrade. Is that correct?
Yes, so, there is a right of way, it's kind of hard to see once I zoom in, but there is a right of way taking there. This right here is our planned
Okay.
new curve there, and then the right turn lane picks up right where we stop. That's a new right turn lane.
Okay, yeah, I would hate to see either a brand new road torn up or, something like that. So
We're certainly trying for that. It is IDOT, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I got you.
Anybody else?
So my only question is, once again, because this is a PUD, it sounds like the board clearly wants more conifers in that northern section of the parking lot area for screenage instead of deciduous trees. That's fine, but the fence goes back forward. Remember, this is the last time that you'll see it. If it's going to the board next, it'll be for a final vote. So now would be the time if you want to have that conversation about a fence on the northern part. Now would be that time.
I don't think a fence is what we want a fence.
I haven't been over that way, but are there residents on the first floor right there? There are windows literally right on the
So
first,
there are windows in this building.
Right,
that face
at the-
that way, yeah.
at the first floor too?
Yes.
Okay.
But again, that is the widest part of their setback.
Could we,
That's going to be grass and trees. Yeah.
could that be bermed a little bit? Couple foot berm plus landscaping? I mean, is that a feasible option too? I mean, you throw some evergreen trees on a 3-foot or 4-foot berm, that might help with screening it a little bit. Seems,
Yeah, so I'll have
We'll
you
look
look
at
into
it.
that option and we'll see what we can come up.
Yeah, I don't think a fence is gonna fit.
otherwise, as far as signage and all that, I'm fine with all that variances.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
You.
Item 2, Steve.
Thank you. Item number 2 is some new permit software that we're looking to install for our community development department. Basically, Nathan's going to walk you through. We've had a system in place for many years. We've upgraded it, but we want to kind of move our capabilities to be more user-friendly, not only internally, but for the residents during the building permit process, which we always are looking to fix because the building permit process is something that we want residents to not feel frustrated with. So with that, Nathan's going to go through some permit software that we're looking at.
Okay, so, this goal has been in the strategic plan for a while to, get our software to the point where you can do online permit submittals. So right now you can go to our website and download a PDF of the application, but you still need to write it out and either email it in or walk it in. A true online permitting software would be where you can put in all your information, upload whatever documents you need, plats or whatever, pay online with a credit card. It all goes in and you don't have to call us or talk to us, or it just happens. And currently our software cannot do that. So we started looking at how do we upgrade our existing software or do a different software. So we evaluated 4 different softwares and our current software, CityView. We looked at upgrading CityView. We also looked at Cloud Permit, Civic Review, SmartGov, and OpenGov. And a shout out to David and Morgan in the Community Development Department. They put together this whole matrix. They went through every aspect of the software and zoomed in on, the customer experience and internal experience and what features are, and came down to Cloud Permit and OpenGov as being the 2 that provided the best experience, the best interface. Cloud Permit on the first year was $18,400. OpenGov was $77,000. So we want to go with Cloud Permit. That's the long and short of it. So we got a quote from them, and there's a draft contract in your packet, and we would like to sign up for them to replace. Just for our current software, CityView, they wanted to charge us $94,000 to upgrade the product we already have and already pay them every year for. That doesn't work that well, so they were X'd off the list pretty early on. So
Sounds good to me.
Yep.
Nathan, I had a question. So do you have to use the software, or can people still come in and do it the old fashioned way? Because some people are not, maybe older people are not as savvy with the computer to upload a PDF or whatever. So people have the opportunity to just do it that way if they wanted to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've heard of some towns, I think Naperville is this way at this point, where they've gone to, you have to
Mhm.
apply online and use this software because they don't want front counter staff. Now, we're not that big of a town.
Okay.
We're not at that level. So we're going to roll this out. We might even put a computer in the lobby. Someone can come in
Yeah.
and wants help and we can fill them out. But yes, for the
Okay.
elderly lady that wants a fence permit, she can still come in.
There are some
and
people who are not on a
still
computer all
take
day,
her.
like some of us are. And so I think just so they have the opportunity to do something that they know how to do instead of, there's nothing more frustrating than when you want to do something simple and you have to go through all these fields, and we've all been there, right? So, yeah, I think it's great, the new software, and as long as we can keep the old option for people who want to use it.
There's
Great.
never an intent to get rid of the face-to-face. That'll always be
Okay.
an option. The one thing that this conversation will bring up during the budget season is, just want to make sure, did everyone get to read that on the screen? Could you actually see the lettering?
No,
Yeah.
I know it's very small, but just to give you an idea of all the things that David and Morgan looked at.
One of the things that we'll bring up is how we handle credit card processing fees internally. Years ago, we took a stance because credit card payments weren't such a big deal back then, that we would just eat the cost as the cost of doing business. But now we are seeing bigger permit fees, and then the question becomes, is a resident permit fee more than what if it's a company for $100,000 permit, and then we're eating the credit card cost on that credit card. So at some point, Jason and I are going to be sitting down, and Jason's going to do an analysis for our credit card processing and how much we eat, so to speak, every year on credit card fees. And we'll see if we need to roll that into the online permit process as well.
All right. Thank you. Should adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Fair say aye.
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 All the same. Have a good night.